The anticipation was electric, a current that hummed beneath the surface of every waking moment as the ship sliced through the frigid waters. For years, Antarctica had existed in my mind as a distant, almost mythical place, its name conjuring images of endless, white, howling winds and a silence so deep it seemed to swallow sound itself. The journey south was a test of patience and resolve. Each day the temperature dropped, the sky grew wider, and the world outside the porthole transformed into a realm of stark, breathtaking beauty. The sea, once alive with rolling waves, became a mirror for the sky, broken only by the slow drift of ancient icebergs, silent giants sculpted by centuries of wind and water. Preparation for this moment had been meticulous. Every detail, from the route to the supplies, was checked and rechecked, knowing that Antarctica's landscape offered no forgiveness for mistakes. The weather was a force unto itself. One moment, the sun would blaze across a sky so blue it seemed unreal, and the next, a wall of wind and snow would sweep across the ice, erasing all traces of the world before. The landscape was a study in contrasts. Towering cliffs of ice, their faces etched with the memory of 1,000 winters, rose above fields of snow so pure and untouched they seemed to glow from within. The wind carried a sharp, crystalline cold, biting at any exposed skin, and the air itself felt impossibly clean, as if every breath was a gift from another world. As the ship drew closer to the continent, the sense of adventure grew almost overwhelming. The horizon was a line of white fire, where the ice met the sky in a seamless, endless expanse. The anticipation of setting foot on this ancient land, of feeling the crunch of snow beneath my boots and the sting of polar air in my lungs, was matched only by a deep, humbling awe. Every moment of preparation, every challenge faced along the way, had led to this threshold. The landscape itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to reveal its secrets to those willing to listen. The anticipation was not just for the adventure ahead, but for the privilege of witnessing a place where nature reigns supreme, untouched and unyielding. The glaciers stretched as far as the eye could see, their surfaces fractured and gleaming, each crevasse a reminder of the continent's raw, unpredictable power. The weather could shift in an instant, transforming the world from a sunlit wonderland to a swirling, white abyss. In those final moments before landfall, the emotional journey reached its peak, a blend of excitement, reverence, and a touch of fear. Antarctica was no longer a distant dream, but a living, breathing reality, waiting just beyond the ship's bow. The great white continent stood ready to unveil its mysteries, and I was ready to listen. To the wind, the ice, and the silent stories written across its endless, frozen expanse. The journey from the wild, wind-battered shores of South Georgia to the icy embrace of the Antarctic Peninsula is a passage few ships dare to make. For 4 relentless days, our vessel was at the mercy of the Southern Ocean, a place where the rules of nature are rewritten by the hour, and the sea itself seems to test every intruder. The Drake Passage, infamous among sailors, greeted us with a fury that defied imagination. Here, the ocean is unbroken by land for thousands of miles, allowing winds to whip up monstrous waves that rise and fall like living mountains. Each swell towered above the ship, 6 or 7 meters high, their crests torn by the wind into plumes of icy spray that lashed the decks and windows. The sky was a shifting canvas of dark, brooding clouds, pierced by the occasional flash of lightning that illuminated the chaos below. The water churned in endless turmoil, a deep, cold blue streaked with white foam, as if the very heart of the ocean was in revolt. Icebergs, silent and menacing, drifted through the storm. Some were small, jagged fragments, spinning in the waves. Others loomed like ghostly fortresses, their pale blue forms barely visible through the mist and spray. Each one was a reminder of the hidden dangers beneath the surface, vast, ancient ice that could tear through steel in an instant. The ship groaned and shuddered with every impact, its hull battered by the relentless assault of the sea. Salt water crashed against the portholes, leaving behind a crystalline crust that sparkled in the brief grey daylight. The decks, slick with ice and brine, were swept clean by each new wave, the cold so intense it seemed to freeze the very air. Albatrosses soared above the chaos, their wings spanning the wind, riding the updrafts with effortless grace. Petrels darted low over the waves, vanishing into the spray. Even in this hostile world, life endured. Seals and penguins could sometimes be glimpsed on distant floes, huddled against the storm. The ship's instruments tracked our progress, longitude ticking steadily southward, the digital displays glowing in the gloom. Each degree brought us deeper into the realm of ice, closer to the edge of the world. The memory of explorers past haunted these waters. Shackleton's desperate journey echoed in every groan of the hull, every crash of the waves. What took him 15 days in a tiny open boat, we attempted in a vessel built for survival, yet the ocean showed no mercy, no matter the era. The rhythm of the sea became the rhythm of the ship. It swayed and rolled, rising and falling with the endless procession of waves. The world outside was a blur of grey and white, the horizon lost in spray and cloud. Sleep was a fleeting visitor, snatched in brief moments between the groans of steel and the rattle of loose objects. The galley, battered by the motion, could offer only the simplest of meals, warmth and sustenance in a world ruled by cold and chaos. Through it all, the Southern Ocean remained untamed. Its power was absolute, its dangers ever-present. Yet, as dawn finally broke on the fourth day, the sea began to yield. The waves softened, the wind eased, and a fragile calm settled over the water. The ship pressed on, leaving behind the fury of the open ocean. The sky brightened, and the promise of land, of the Antarctic peninsula, grew stronger with every mile. The ordeal was over, but the memory of the Southern Ocean's wrath would linger long after the storm had passed. Hummock Island rises from the icy waters of the Antarctic peninsula like a vision from another world. Its very name is a tribute to its most striking feature: two immense snow-draped mountains that dominate the island's skyline, their rounded summits connected by a gentle hammock-shaped saddle of snow and ice. These ancient peaks, sculpted by relentless winds and the slow passage of time, are more than 670 meters tall. They have stood for over 2 million years, silent and unyielding, their flanks carved by glaciers and their summits crowned with untouched snow. The landscape here is a world of contrasts: brilliant blue sky arching over endless fields of white, the snow softening every edge and curve, transforming jagged rocks into gentle undulating forms. The air is impossibly clear, and the silence is profound, broken only by the distant crackle of shifting ice. From above, the island appears as a pristine wilderness, its twin peaks rising like sentinels over a landscape sculpted by millennia of snow and wind. The slopes are blanketed in deep, powdery snow, interrupted only by the occasional outcrop of ancient dark rock. Along the rocky shores, colonies of penguins gather in noisy, bustling communities. Their calls echo across the ice, a living soundtrack to the island's wild beauty. The penguins waddle and slide across the rocks, their black and white forms a striking contrast against the snow. The snow here is deep and untouched, a flawless white canvas that stretches from the water's edge to the highest peaks. Each winter, storms sweep across the island, layering the land in fresh powder and erasing all traces of the past season. In the heart of winter, the island is sealed off from the world, its snowfields unbroken and its silence absolute. The only marks upon the land are those left by the wind and the wandering penguins. The snow itself is a marvel, crystalline, sparkling in the sunlight, each flake a tiny miracle of geometry. The cold is sharp and invigorating, and the air carries the faint, briny scent of the Southern Ocean. The island's interior is a realm of silence and solitude, where the only movement is the slow drift of snow and the distant flight of a skua or petrel. The light here is ever-changing, painting the landscape in shades of blue, silver, and gold as the sun arcs low across the sky. Hummock Island is a place of raw, unspoiled beauty, a sanctuary of ice and stone, where the forces of nature reign supreme and every detail tells the story of a world shaped by time, wind, and snow. Antarctica is not just another continent, it is a realm of extremes, a place where the very fabric of the earth is pushed to its limits. Here, the world's most astonishing superlatives are not just records, they are the daily reality, woven into every snowflake, every gust of wind, and every endless horizon of ice. This is the coldest, driest, and windiest continent on the planet. Its vastness is almost beyond comprehension, stretching across 14.2 million square kilometers, making it the fifth largest continent and large enough to swallow the United States, China, and India combined within its frozen embrace. In the fleeting warmth of summer, rocky outcrops and patches of bare ground emerge, hinting at the land beneath the ice. But as the sun dips and the long polar night descends, the surrounding sea freezes, doubling the continent's size. The sea ice radiates outward for hundreds of kilometers, creating the most dramatic seasonal transformation found anywhere on Earth. The cold here is not merely a number on a thermometer, it is a force that shapes the land itself. The lowest temperature ever recorded on our planet, a staggering -89 degrees Celsius, was measured here. Even in the so-called warmth of summer, air temperatures hover just below freezing, but the ever-present wind makes the air feel far colder, biting into the landscape with relentless ferocity. The wind is a constant companion, a sculptor and destroyer. Antarctica is the windiest place on Earth, home to the legendary katabatic winds. These are born from cold, dense air that pours down from the high interior plateau, pulled by gravity, accelerating as it descends. Gusts can reach hurricane speeds of 300 kilometers per hour, sweeping across the ice with a roar that never truly ceases. These winds carve the snow and ice into otherworldly formations called sastrugi, sharp, wind-sculpted ridges that stretch across the surface like frozen waves. The landscape is stripped bare, the snow swept away to reveal the ancient ice beneath, and the very air is filled with swirling crystals glinting in the pale Antarctic light. Even on days that seem calm, the wind's presence is felt. It shapes the clouds, scours the ground, and ensures that nothing here is ever truly still. The power of the wind is a reminder of Antarctica's untamable spirit, a force that dominates every aspect of this frozen world. Yet, for all its ice, Antarctica is the world's largest desert. The air is so cold that it can hold almost no moisture, resulting in an average humidity of just 1%. Precipitation is rare, falling as fine ice crystals that drift gently from the sky, barely enough to coat the surface. Beneath this thin layer of snow lies a vast ancient ice sheet, covering 98% of the continent, and in places nearly 5 kilometers thick. This colossal reservoir of frozen fresh water contains about 70% of all the fresh water on Earth, locked away in silence and cold, a testament to the continent's global significance. Antarctica is a land of paradoxes and extremes, where the ordinary rules of nature are rewritten. It is a place of breathtaking beauty and unimaginable power, a world apart, defined by its superlatives and its mysteries. In Antarctica, the rhythms of nature are written in light, shadow, and silence, an ancient cycle that shapes every living thing and every frozen stone. Here, the sun's journey is not a daily event, but a slow, sweeping arc that transforms the world in ways almost unimaginable. As the Antarctic summer awakens, the land is flooded with a brilliance so pure it seems to ring in the air. The ice fields stretch endlessly, dazzling white beneath a sky of impossible blue. The sun hovers just above the horizon, circling, never quite setting, casting long, sharp shadows that crawl across the snow and sculpt the landscape in shifting patterns of light and dark. The silence is profound, broken only by the distant crack and groan of shifting ice, the whisper of wind sweeping over the tundra, and the faint crystalline tinkling of snowflakes skittering across the hard-packed surface. There are no trees, no rustling leaves, only the soft sigh of the polar breeze and the occasional call of a distant bird echoing across the emptiness. As the days lengthen, the world becomes a realm of perpetual twilight. For weeks the sun refuses to set, painting the ice in hues of gold and rose, then pale blue and silver as midnight approaches. Shadows stretch and fade, and the boundary between day and night dissolves into a dreamlike haze. In this endless daylight, the land pulses with subtle life. The snow sparkles with hidden colors, and the icebergs glow from within, their blue hearts revealed by the slanting sun. The air is crisp and cold, carrying the faint scent of salt and the promise of distant storms. But as the earth tilts and the season turns, the light begins to falter, shadows grow longer, and a hush falls over the continent. The sun dips lower each day until at last it slips beneath the horizon and darkness claims the land. The arrival of the polar night is sudden and absolute. For months the world is shrouded in deep, unbroken darkness. The only illumination comes from the cold gleam of the moon, the sharp glitter of stars, and the ghostly curtains of the Aurora, Australis rippling across the sky. In the heart of winter the silence deepens. The wind howls across the ice, driving snow in blinding sheets, sculpting drifts and burying all in a mantle of white. The cold is fierce, biting, and the darkness seems endless, pressing in from every side. Yet even in this frozen night, life endures. Beneath the ice, the ocean teems with hidden energy. When the sun returns, the first rays ignite a riot of color as phytoplankton bloom in the frigid waters, painting the sea with swirls of green and blue. This explosion of life surges through the food chain, feeding krill, which in turn nourish the great gatherings of penguins, seals, and whales. The air fills with the calls of birds and the splash of flippers, a brief, exuberant celebration before the cycle turns again. As the light fades and the sea begins to freeze, the animals retreat and the land falls silent once more. The ice stretches unbroken to the horizon, and the only sound is the wind singing its ancient song across the empty expanse. In Antarctica, time is measured not by clocks, but by the slow dance of sun and shadow, the rise and fall of light and darkness, the eternal heartbeat of the wildest place on Earth. Life aboard the expedition vessel unfolded like a quiet symphony, each detail carefully orchestrated against the backdrop of the Antarctic wilds. Beyond the thick glass of the portholes, the world was a shifting canvas of ice and sea, the silence broken only by the distant groan of glaciers and the ship's gentle creaks. The ship itself was a sturdy cocoon, built for resilience rather than luxury, its decks and corridors designed to withstand the unpredictable moods of the Southern Ocean. Every surface, every fixture spoke of purpose. Navigation equipment humming quietly, safety gear neatly stowed, the ship's wheel steady as it charted a course through the frozen expanse. The heart of the vessel was its learning spaces, where knowledge of the continent's geology, biology, and history was preserved in books and maps waiting to be discovered. Systems of order prevailed everywhere, from the numbered tags ready for each excursion to the rows of expedition gear, all meticulously arranged for safety and efficiency. The Zodiacs waited patiently, their black hulls reflecting the pale Antarctic light, always prepared for the next journey into the unknown. In the galley, the aroma of simmering soups and fresh bread filled the air, a comforting contrast to the chill outside. Meals were a ritual, each one a celebration of warmth and sustenance. Dinners began with steaming bowls of soup, potato, carrot, ginger, followed by hearty mains, and always a sweet finish like rice pudding, each dish a small comfort in the vastness of the polar world. Simple pleasures like warm garlic bread became treasured moments, their flavors lingering long after the meal was done. Cabins, though compact, offered a private sanctuary, a place to rest, reflect, and watch the ever-changing light play across the ice through the window. Blackout curtains shielded the cabins from the endless polar sun, while the gentle rocking of the ship lulled the vessel into a quiet, restful rhythm. The ship was more than a means of travel. It was a floating sanctuary, a classroom, and a haven, its spaces filled with the quiet anticipation of discovery. Outside, the sea and sky merged in a seamless horizon, the ship forging ahead through a world untouched and wild, its presence a small, steadfast beacon in the heart of Antarctica. The ritual of preparation for Antarctic exploration is a solemn dance between human ingenuity and the raw, untamed power of the southernmost continent. In the quiet of the ship's cabin, every piece of equipment is laid out with precision, each item a silent promise of safety and survival in a world where the weather can turn from serene to savage in moments. The air inside is thick with anticipation, and outside the wind howls across endless fields of ice, its chill seeping through even the thickest walls. Here, ordinary winter clothing is useless. Instead, a carefully engineered system of layers awaits, thermal base layers, fleeces, and heavy jackets, each designed to trap warmth and wick away the ever-present moisture that could spell disaster in the cold. The ritual begins with the base layers, soft and close to the skin, their fibers engineered to draw sweat away, keeping the body dry and insulated. Next come the thermal leggings and insulated trousers stacked in a precise order, each layer adding a barrier against the biting cold that seeps up from the frozen ground. For the upper body, layers are arranged like armor, a moisture-wicking shirt, a thick fleece, and finally, the expedition's signature, an iconic, bright red parka. This jacket is more than just clothing. Its vibrant color is a beacon in the endless white, a vital safety feature in a landscape where visibility can vanish in a heartbeat. The parka's material is dense and windproof, engineered to withstand the relentless Antarctic gusts that can strip away warmth in seconds. Every seam, every zipper, is a line of defense against the elements. Gloves and mittens are paired and stacked, thin liners for dexterity, and thick waterproof outers for warmth. Nearby, balaclavas and hats are ready to be layered beneath the jacket's hood, forming a fortress around the head and neck, where heat loss is most dangerous. At the foot of the bed, tall, insulated rubber boots stand ready. Their thick soles and waterproof linings are essential for wet landings, where explorers must step from the Zodiac into icy, slushy water, the boots forming the final barrier between flesh and frostbite. Safety equipment is given equal reverence. Life jackets, some lightweight and inflatable, others heavy-duty and robust, are arranged in careful rows. The inflatable vests, with their CO2 cylinders and whistles, are the first line of defense for Zodiac crossings, while the immersion suits and substantial life preservers are reserved for true emergencies. Their bright colors and reflective strips designed to catch the eye of rescuers even in the worst conditions. Each piece of gear is checked and rechecked, every buckle fastened, every zipper tested. The process is slow, deliberate, and sometimes cumbersome, but it is a necessary ritual, a transformation from vulnerable human to well-protected visitor, cocooned against the cold. As the final layer is zipped and the last boot is pulled on, the gear stands ready, a silent testament to the respect demanded by this magnificent and unforgiving environment. In Antarctica, you do not conquer. You prepare, and you hope that your preparations are enough to grant you safe passage, if only for a brief moment, in the heart of the world's last true wilderness. The true magic of Antarctica reveals itself not just in its vast icy scale, but in the intricate, intimate details of the wildlife and landscapes that thrive in this extreme environment. Here, every moment feels like a glimpse into a world untouched by time, where survival is an art and beauty is everywhere. Our first encounters were with the penguins, Adelie and Gentoo, marching in single file along snowy trails, their black and white forms stark against the shimmering blue of distant glaciers. Each penguin seemed to know its place, following invisible paths carved by generations before them, their tiny feet leaving a network of prints in the powdery snow. Some would suddenly drop onto their bellies and toboggan down icy slopes, using their flippers to steer and propel themselves, gliding with surprising speed and grace. The snow would spray up around them, and their joyful energy was infectious. In the heart of the colonies, thousands of penguins gathered in a cacophony of sound and movement. The air was filled with their calls, sharp, braying, and constant as they greeted mates, squabbled over pebbles, and tended to their fluffy chicks nestled safely between their feet. We watched as penguins performed their daily rituals. Some carefully preened their feathers, others exchanged pebbles as gifts, and a few engaged in playful chases, darting through the throng with surprising agility. Occasionally, a particularly curious penguin would break away from the group, waddling closer, craning its neck and tilting its head with a comical, inquisitive expression. Their eyes sparkled with intelligence and mischief, and their boldness was matched only by their vocal enthusiasm. The constant chatter of the colony was a living soundtrack, calls echoing across the ice, a symphony of life in a land of silence. Each penguin seemed to have a unique voice, and their lively communication filled the air with energy and warmth. Along the shorelines and on floating ice floes, the scene shifted to the seals, masters of stillness and survival. Their forms blended into the landscape, sleek and powerful, perfectly adapted to the cold. Weddell seals, with their silvery coats and soulful eyes, lounged on the ice, their bodies curved in elegant repose. They seemed to melt into the frozen world, their breath rising in gentle clouds as they rested. Nearby, massive elephant seals sprawled across the snow, their sheer size and blubbery folds a testament to their adaptation. They lay in loose groups, occasionally shifting or grunting, their deep, resonant calls rolling across the ice. Seals would yawn, revealing rows of sharp teeth, or stretch languidly, rolling over with a slow, deliberate motion. Their eyes would flicker open, glancing around before closing again, content in their icy sanctuary. The seals seemed utterly unbothered by the world around them, their calm presence a stark contrast to the bustling penguin colonies. They were the silent sentinels of the ice, perfectly at home in the frozen expanse. Observing these animals in their natural habitat, so perfectly adapted to the extremes, was a humbling experience. They are the true citizens of this icy kingdom, each one a marvel of evolution and resilience. Beyond the wildlife, the landscape itself was a living masterpiece. The icebergs that drifted past were not just blocks of frozen water, but colossal sculptures shaped by time and the elements. Some were tabular, flat-topped giants that had broken away from ancient ice shelves, their sheer sides rising like walls from the sea. Others were sculpted by wind and waves into fantastical shapes, arches, spires, and delicate bridges, each one unique, a fleeting work of art in a world of constant change. The most mesmerizing feature was the color of the ice. Deep within the ancient glaciers, the ice was compressed so tightly that all the air bubbles had been squeezed out. This caused the ice to absorb the red and yellow light of the spectrum, reflecting only the blue. When sunlight struck these glaciers and icebergs at just the right angle, they glowed with an intense, ethereal blue light that seemed to radiate from within. The sight was otherworldly, an electric blue glow that shimmered beneath the surface, hinting at the ancient secrets locked within the ice. Cruising through the quiet bays, the only sounds were the gentle lapping of water against the hull, and the distant crack and groan of shifting glaciers. The water was so clear and still that the icebergs seemed to float in the sky, their reflections perfect and undisturbed. Occasionally, a distant rumble would echo across the bay as a glacier calved, sending a plume of ice and snow into the air. The glaciers themselves were layered with history, each band of ice a record of snowfall from centuries or even millennia ago. These slow-moving rivers of ice crept inexorably toward the sea, their journey marked by deep crevasses and towering seracs. At the glacier's edge, massive chunks would break away, crashing into the ocean and creating the very icebergs that dotted the horizon. Each calving event was a reminder of the dynamic, ever-changing nature of this frozen world, a place where nothing is truly still and every moment is a part of a grand ongoing story. Antarctica is a land of breathtaking and unparalleled beauty, where wildlife and ice exist in a delicate, powerful balance. Here, every detail tells a story of survival, adaptation, and the raw, untamed wonder of the natural world. The Antarctic wind is not just a force of nature, it is a living, breathing presence, shaping every moment on this vast, frozen continent. Here the air itself seems to howl with ancient power, sweeping across the endless ice fields and sculpting the landscape into forms both beautiful and forbidding. Each day the wind rises with the dawn, its icy breath lashing the snow into blinding flurries. The environment is in constant motion, nothing is ever still. The snow is swept into drifts that shift and change, erasing tracks and reshaping the ground beneath them. The wind sculpts the snow into sastrugi, jagged ridges that rise and fall like frozen waves. These natural obstacles make every step, every movement, a challenge, each ridge a barrier, each hollow a hidden trap. The weather is a relentless adversary. Sudden gusts can strip the warmth from the air in seconds, and the ever-present threat of hidden crevasses lies beneath the snow, their entrances masked by drifting powder. The sky itself is a canvas of constant change. Clouds scud across the heavens, sometimes revealing a piercing blue, sometimes closing in to create a world of white and grey, where horizon and sky become one. The wind creates its own phenomena, snow devils that dance across the plains, and gusts so fierce they send shards of ice tumbling and spinning across the frozen ground. Even the rocks and ice themselves bear the marks of the wind's passage. Frost etches delicate patterns, and icicles tremble in the relentless gale. When storms descend, the world is reduced to a blur of white and grey, the wind's roar drowning out all other sounds. Visibility vanishes, and the landscape becomes a maze of shifting snow and hidden dangers. The Antarctic wind is a test of endurance for the land itself, wearing down even the hardest ice, reshaping the very face of the continent over time. Yet, in rare moments, the wind parts the clouds and sunlight pours across the ice, turning the blowing snow into a field of diamonds and the harshness of the environment into something breathtakingly beautiful. In this place, the wind is both adversary and artist, shaping the Antarctic into a realm of constant challenge and stark, wild beauty. Every moment here is a reminder of nature's power and the endless struggle between the elements and the land. This is the true challenge against the wind, an environment where survival is a daily battle and where the forces of nature reign supreme, untamed and unyielding. Gap 3s. After the fury of the wind, a profound hush settles over the Antarctic ice fields, a silence so deep it feels almost otherworldly. Here the world stretches out in every direction, an endless expanse of white that blurs the boundaries between earth and sky. The ice is a living canvas, its surface etched with subtle textures, wind-carved ridges, glassy patches where the sun has melted and refrozen the snow, and ancient cracks that run like veins beneath the surface. The colours of the ice fields reveal themselves in layers. At first glance, everything is stark white, but as the light shifts, blues and silvers emerge. pale cerulean shadows pooling in the hollows, and flashes of turquoise where clear ice is exposed. When the low sun hangs on the horizon, it paints the landscape in gold and rose, casting long, soft shadows that ripple across the snow. The atmosphere is one of stillness, a silence so complete it amplifies even the smallest sound. An occasional distant crack echoes as the ice settles, but otherwise there is only the quiet, the muffled presence of snow absorbing all noise. The air is crisp and biting, each breath a reminder of the cold purity that defines this place. Frost crystals sparkle along the surface, catching the light and scattering it in a million directions, as if the ground were dusted with diamonds. The snow underfoot is a patchwork of textures. Some areas are powdery and soft, others hard-packed and glistening, almost like polished marble. In places the wind has sculpted the snow into smooth, undulating waves, while elsewhere jagged sastrugi jut from the surface casting sharp shadows. Above, the sky is a dome of infinite clarity, its blue so intense it seems unreal. Wisps of cloud drift lazily, their forms reflected in the sheen of the ice below. On clear days, the horizon stretches unbroken, giving the illusion that the fields go on forever, merging seamlessly with the sky. In this immense silence, time seems to slow. There are no signs of human life, no footprints, no sound of engines, no trace of civilization. Only the endless, patient presence of the ice, enduring through centuries, sculpted by wind and sun, waiting in stillness for the next storm, the next sunrise, the next chapter in its ancient story. The silence of the ice fields is not emptiness, but a profound presence, a testament to the raw, untouched beauty of Antarctica. Here, the land itself speaks, not with noise, but with the eloquence of silence, inviting contemplation and awe. But Gap 3s. As darkness deepens over the Antarctic expanse, the ice fields become a vast stage for one of nature's most extraordinary performances. Suddenly, the blackness overhead is pierced by a subtle glow. At first, a faint green shimmer on the horizon, barely perceptible against the night. But as moments pass, the glow intensifies, unfurling in broad, luminous ribbons that ripple and twist across the sky. The Aurora Australis, southern lights, begins its dance. Emerald waves sweep upward, shifting and pulsing with silent energy. Streaks of violet and indigo curl at the edges, blending into the green, while flashes of deep crimson and electric blue flare in sudden bursts, painting the heavens in a palette found nowhere else on Earth. The colors flow and transform, swirling in fluid motion, their forms never quite the same from one heartbeat to the next. The icy landscape below is transformed by the aurora's glow. Where the sun once painted the snow with gold and rose, now the ice gleams in surreal greens and blues, casting ghostly reflections across the frozen surface. Sastrugi and drifts take on a spectral sheen, their contours highlighted in shifting hues. Shadows dance and dissolve as curtains of light sweep overhead, illuminating the frost crystals so that they glimmer like tiny lanterns scattered across the snow. Silence reigns, unchanged and absolute, yet the air vibrates with the silent majesty of the spectacle above. The aurora's ribbons undulate with graceful abandon, sometimes arching high into the sky, at other times cascading downward as if to caress the waiting ice. Wisps of light spiral and intertwine, weaving ephemeral patterns that linger only for an instant before melting into new forms. The sky becomes a living canvas, each moment a masterpiece of color and motion. The horizon glows with a greenish halo, while overhead the darkness is alight with swirling, ever-changing bands. The ice fields, untouched and eternal, reflect the aurora's magic, amplifying the sense of wonder and awe. Here, in the heart of Antarctica, the aurora is more than a spectacle. It is a communion between earth and sky, a silent symphony played out on the grandest of stages. Beneath its luminous embrace the continent sleeps, wrapped in the light of the southern night, its silence deepened, its beauty magnified by the celestial dance above. Gap 2s. As dawn teases the Antarctic horizon, a different spectacle unfolds, silent, slow, and monumental. The sea, still cloaked in the lingering glow of the Aurora, becomes a stage for giants. Icebergs, ancient and immense, drift through the frigid waters, their forms sculpted by time and the relentless will of the elements. Some rise like cathedral spires, jagged, brilliant, and impossibly tall, while others stretch low and wide, their surfaces smoothed by countless years of wind and tide. Blue veins snake through their white faces, revealing ancient layers compressed over millennia. Flat-topped tabular bergs glide with stately grace, their sheer cliffs towering above the waves. In contrast, smaller bergy bits and growlers bob and tumble, ever shifting in the restless swell. The movement is hypnotic. Massive bergs, some as large as city blocks, pivot and turn with the ocean's slow pulse. Occasionally, two giants approach, their frozen bodies scraping against one another with a deep, resonant groan, a thunderous, echoing sound that vibrates through the water and air. Shards splinter away, crashing into the sea with sharp, crystalline splashes. Each collision sends ripples radiating outward, disturbing flocks of seabirds that wheel and cry overhead. In the hush between impacts, a softer music emerges, the fizz and snap of melting ice, tiny bubbles escaping from deep within as the bergs slowly surrender to the sea. Sometimes a colossal section shears away without warning, plunging into the ocean and sending up a geyser of spray. The reverberation lingers, a reminder of the power locked within these frozen behemoths. Light plays across their surfaces, refracting and shimmering in 1,000 hues, icy turquoise, ghostly blue, and dazzling white. Shadows carve deep furrows and sharp ridges, accentuating the sculptural artistry of each iceberg. Some bear arches and tunnels, carved by the ceaseless flow of water. Others are riddled with crevices, their interiors glowing with an otherworldly light. The sea itself becomes a mirror, reflecting the drifting ice and the pastel sky above. As the icebergs move, they seem to dance, a slow, stately waltz orchestrated by wind and current, ancient and eternal. No human presence mars the scene, only the ice, the sea, and the wild, unbroken silence of Antarctica. In this frozen ballet, every iceberg tells a story of creation, transformation, and inevitable dissolution, a fleeting masterpiece in the endless cycle of ice and ocean. As the first blush of dawn spills across the Antarctic horizon, the world awakens in a hush of color and movement. The ice fields, bathed in delicate hues of rose and gold, serve as a silent amphitheater for the continent's most resilient inhabitants. On the sea ice, emperor penguins gather in tight, huddled clusters. Their breath curls in the frigid air, mingling with the low, rhythmic calls that echo softly across the frozen expanse. Chicks, downy and grey, shuffle between adult legs, sheltered from the biting wind. Nearby, Adelie penguins hop from floe to floe, their stark black and white forms made luminous by the slanting sun. With sudden energy, they launch themselves into the icy water, vanishing beneath the surface in a flurry of bubbles. Along the shoreline, Weddell seals bask in the newborn light, their sleek bodies mottled with frost. Some slumber, whiskers twitching, while others rouse themselves, stretching and yawning before slipping into the sea. Their movements are languid, unhurried, a sharp contrast to the raucous cacophony of a distant crab-eater seal colony where barks and growls ring out over the stillness. Above, the sky fills with life as skuas and petrels wheel and dive, their wings catching the first rays of the sun. Snow petrels, ghostly white against the blue, skim low over the water, searching for morsels left behind by the night's activity. South polar skuas patrol the penguin rookeries, ever watchful, alert for an unguarded egg or chick. Out at sea, the glassy surface breaks as a pod of orcas glides by, their dorsal fins slicing through the dawn-lit water. Occasionally, a minke whale surfaces, exhaling a plume of mist that catches the morning light before sinking back into the depths. The air is alive with subtle sounds, the crackle of shifting ice, the distant chorus of penguins, the splash of a seal entering the water. Overhead, the sky brightens, painting the snow and ice in a spectrum of shifting pastels. The landscape pulses with life, each creature playing its part in the intricate web of survival. In these precious moments, untouched by human presence, the continent reveals its secret rhythms, a symphony of resilience and adaptation, performed beneath the endless Antarctic sky. There's a time in Antarctica when the sun refuses to set, a phenomenon known as the endless polar day. For weeks on end, the continent is suspended in a state of perpetual daylight, bathed in a brilliance that never fades, even as the hours slip silently past. The sun circles the sky in a slow, unending arc, never dipping below the horizon. Its path transforms the ice and snow into a living canvas, the landscape shifting through a spectrum of light. In the early hours, the world is washed in pearly blues and silvers. Shadows stretch long and thin across the frozen ground, carving delicate patterns into the snow. As noon approaches, the light intensifies, sharpening the contours of jagged peaks and shimmering icebergs. The glaciers glow with an inner fire, their edges radiating turquoise and aquamarine. Sunlight scatters across the sea, setting the water ablaze with 1,000 glittering points. Crevasses and fissures in the ice become rivers of light, their depths illuminated by the relentless sun. By late afternoon, the sky shifts to a softer gold, painting the clouds in pastels, lavender, peach, and pale green. The snowfields reflect these colours, creating an otherworldly glow that seems to rise from the ground itself. Even as midnight arrives, the sun lingers just above the horizon, a golden disk suspended in a sky brushed with faint pinks and blues. There is no true darkness, only a gentle twilight that wraps the land in a perpetual embrace. This endless day brings a restless energy to the wildlife. Penguins and seals adjust their rhythms, foraging and resting in cycles dictated not by nightfall, but by instinct alone. The ice itself appears to breathe, melting and refreezing in slow motion, responding to the ceaseless touch of sunlight. In this world, without night, time loses its meaning. The Antarctic landscape exists in a dreamlike state, forever illuminated, forever awake, caught in the spell of the endless polar day.